Welcome to the Homeschool Experience, where home education, culture, and faith find its place. Our mission is to amplify diverse voices in homeschooling and motherhood through insightful chats, cultural perspectives, and faith. My name is Elizabeth Angemotu, and I am your host, along with
Joanna Toleno
and Johannes Acevedo.
We just want to warmly welcome everyone to our very first podcast. This is our very first episode, so please bear with us. We're still learning how to do everything, but we are so excited everyone is here to listen.
Yes, this has been a labor of love. For the past months, we've been working hard to start the podcast, and here we are.
Here we are, finally, yay! We're so beyond thrilled that you guys are here and that we're finally be able to create this space and start these conversations. And like Joanna said, this is our first episode. And today we just want to share with you who we are, our background, a little bit about our families, and why we started the homeschool experience in the first place.
Yes, but first we want to tell everyone that we're not saying there's a right or wrong way to do homeschool. We're just sharing our experience and really just having a space open for all the diverse stories that can be told in homeschooling.
For sure. The truth is that the three of us have very different backgrounds and experiences. And that's actually why we wanted to come together to do this, to be able to share more about those differences and the beauty that's found in those. I will start, I guess, to share a little bit about who I am. You already heard my name was Elizabeth. I am a mother of four. This is my 6th year, roughly, of homeschooling. We have an almost 11, 9, 7, and 4-year-old. When I started homeschooling around, I guess 7-ish years ago, unofficially, I didn't have any intention to homeschool. I was previously a middle school teacher, teaching in a public school, and we had our oldest in June, and we plan to just go back into the regular routine in September with the new school year. It was a beautiful birth, and then just all of the realities of motherhood hit, and I spent the whole summer just trying to figure myself out and figure my new baby out. And so by the time September, or I think it was actually August, came around, I was not ready to go back into teaching full time. So that was the start of kind of getting to homeschooling, was that I didn't go back into my full-time job. I ended up doing numerous other things just part-time to kind of make things work. And each year as it got closer to kindergarten, my sister was encouraging me to homeschool. She was currently homeschooling. She was homeschooling at that time. So she would send me videos of people that were inspirational who had previously homeschooled or had been homeschooled, and send me videos of, growth mindset, like learning in different environments. And I was like, okay, well, this is good. So I told her, I was like, we'll just take it easy and we'll figure it out during these kind of preschool years. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we did. So as we got closer to kindergarten, it was finally, he was at that age, and I was like, okay, I guess we're going to keep going, because it had been really enjoyable. And, and I loved the time with him. Honestly, that was my favorite thing, was just being with him. So, that's kind of how it all fell in our laps. It was never my intention, fell into my lap, but it just, one thing led to another, and now
you're homeschool your 4 kids.
And now
you started with just one, and now I love them. Amazing.
So, yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, as you were telling that story, I was just imagining your oldest the way he is now, just thinking, oh, that's such a sweet thing.
Yeah.
Is your sister still homeschooling?
No, she isn't homeschooling right now. Yeah, her kids are in a private school, but they love their school, and it's a great fit for them.
I love how people, like, sometimes some ideas of how we can raise our family or educate our kids is not even in our radar, right? And
Mhm.
the encouragement of others, or even like sending
Mhm.
like a little video, or like sometimes people see things in us that we don't see in ourselves,
Mhm.
and they like your sister could see like, I think you will actually enjoy this and this will be good for you, and she, kind of push you and encourage you, in a good way to do it. And look at you, like now she's not homeschooling and you are, and that's so cool.
Mhm.
I love that story.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So I'll go
Yeah.
and I'll say a little bit about my background and how we got to start homeschooling. So, first of all, I am a first generation American, my parents being from Nicaragua. And I grew up in Missouri, but my husband and I moved to Washington about 16 years ago. And so that's a long time.
Nice.
So now we have three brilliant kids. I have a 15-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old daughter, and a 5-year-old son. And yeah, so when I think it's funny how we are probably all going to be telling stories about our oldest child because that's the one who helped us decide to start homeschooling. So
Mm-hmm.
my oldest, she was vibrant and active, and I didn't want her beautiful little personality to be something negative when she started school.
Mhm.
I didn't really know. Well, I knew one person who had homeschooled at that time, but I don't even think she was actively homeschooling at the time. Um, I was really into Waldorf education at the time as well. This beautiful, nurturing environment, right? So after doing my research on the local Waldorf schools and Washington homeschool law, I was like, I think I can do this by myself and for much cheaper, actually. So we went for it. And um, honestly, like I had some people around me thinking that was really weird. I can think of one person in particular, but I was like,
Can we all?
this is
Can we all? Yeah.
yeah, yes. I was like, yeah, how hard can I screw it up in kindergarten? I felt like it was low stakes and we would take it 1 year at a time.
Hmm.
And here we are. Oh, 10 years later. 10 years. Been doing it for 10 years. So a decade. We're
Nice.
like finishing up the end of our 10th year.
Wow.
And yeah, so we've
Is
added
she
two
going
more
to? She's
kids.
going to 11th grade.
She will be in
11th
11th
grade now.
grade next year. Yeah. hmm So
That's crazy.
yeah, we've added the other two kids and they just are born into it. So it's been
Hmm.
easier for them, the adjustment for them to like flip the switch into, okay, you're 5, let's
Right.
start homeschool.
Hmm.
So it's more gradual for them than it was more of like it was harder for my oldest in the beginning to just flip that switch and being like, I know you're at home and this is your comfort zone where we play
Yeah.
and have fun. But now we're also going to be sitting here doing circle time and you have to learn your alphabet, the way they look, and you're going
Yeah.
to do this and that. So, but yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
So
So
cool.
thankful. Yeah.
I don't know about you
Mhm.
guys, but there's something about when you think about the fact that you taught your kids to read. I'm like, I did that. I I did that. Like he knows how to read because of me. And of course
Yeah.
not. Like it's because of him and his, all the effort that he put into it. But also, thank you, mom, for teaching me to
Yeah.
read. And it's a wonderful thing, I think, to be able to see those things happening right in front of your eyes
Yeah.
with your children. Well, I guess I'll go because there's nobody left. My background is I'm from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised until I was 25, and I moved to Seattle to complete a master's degree in counseling. But my homeschool, I was thinking about this as I was, preparing for our podcast, and my homeschool kind of idea and thought started when I was like probably like 16 or 17, which is so I was like, really? I remember I had this memory come where I was having dinner with my mom in one of those like pasta places. I'm not gonna name it because they're not sponsoring us, but like one of those places that you eat pasta that people love back home. And I remember we were eating, and we were talking about my plans for college. And I knew I wanted to be a teacher for a long time, but I remember having a conversation with her that I wanted to homeschool my very, very future kids that I didn't even know when was that was going to happen. And I remember my mom, whom I love, and she supports me in everything. Like I mean, she will listen to this hopefully. And I love you, mom. But I remember my mom saying, you know, that kids that are homeschooled, they're weird. You know, like they are not very good socially. And I remember listening to that and like putting it in a drawer because I mean, it's like at 16, you want to marry Justin Timberlake, right? Like you are going to do all these things that are not really going to happen. So I was like, well, maybe, and my mom is always right. So maybe it's true. And so, anyways, I went on to college for special education and then went on to do my master, got married. Fast forward, we have our first son. And I think uh, it was it was after I completed my master's. So at that point I had a decision to make. And it's hard to, and I think both of you have had to do this too, to kind of pick in between continuing your career or choosing to stay home with your kids, right? And it's like it's not an easy choice. But the expensiveness of Seattle helped us decide really, really quickly. Because when we looked into daycare, like it was like $2,500 per month to put a baby in a daycare, and it was like, no, thank you, I will pass on that. And will, like you said, Joanna, like it's way cheaper. And so what started like that little dream, then all of a sudden started becoming like a reality. And now we're what I mean, officially he's 7. My oldest is 7, and seeing him thrive and like you were saying, Joanna, with your oldest, my oldest personality is like sometimes when I think about him being in public school, I'm like, ooh, I think he'll be labeled as so many things that I know he's not, but that's the way he will be labeled because he's very active and has a lot of energy. And so I'm just really thankful that we're able to stay home and do, forward his education this way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Like when I look at my kids, one thing I'm proud of is that I've been able to protect their childhood, that childhood
Mm-hmm.
magic,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
sometimes you do lose when you're thrust into a situation that you're not ready for. Um,
Yes. And I think when we choosing to homeschool is something that can come with a lot of fears too, especially if you're doing it like I think most of us did. I mean, Elizabeth, you had your sister kind of like giving you little hints, but even then, like it's such a new experience, right? That we go in not knowing. And I think maybe Elizabeth, tell me how was your experience? But being an educator, you go in with all this habits and ways of teaching that don't apply to homeschooling, and you're like, how was I a teacher? How was I ever a teacher? Did that happen to you?
Yeah, I think it's actually been one of the hardest things about homeschooling is retraining my mind to think about how we kids learn and how they
Yes.
should learn.
Hmm.
I mean, in the classroom, there's certain structures that are necessary, to manage 30 children or 25 children or 20 or
For sure.
even 15, and they are helpful. But in a school setting, in your living room or your dining room or wherever you choose to, teach your kids at home, it's not necessary. And yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
still laugh. My first year of kindergarten, I was like so excited. I had like an old teacher planner from previous years of teaching that I was like, here I am, I'm going to take it out and I'm going to write down all the things. So I'm being completely honest. I had a chalkboard with 7 subjects on it and like the times that we were going to start them. I'm like, he was just turned 5. Well, we had 7 subjects that we were going to go through. And the first day was like all of this excitement. And then probably by midweek of the first week, it was like frustration and
Mhm.
there's not enough time, you know, like it was like some of the things that I thought we were going to do took a little bit longer. And then it was like, well, we still have the other 5 subjects to complete. Um,
Mhm.
but it was it probably took just the first week. By the end of the week, I was like, okay, this is not realistic. I don't know. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I trying to teach him 7 subjects in a row? I mean, in one sitting, you know, for a 5-year-old. Um, it was miserable for
Yeah.
him for sure. And it was miserable for me too. It was like, I was frustrated. He was frustrated. So then we cut it, I think maybe in half, maybe even more, more than that.
Yeah.
And then the schedule, I don't think we've ever used that same chalkboard again for, for a daily schedule. I mean, we don't, yeah, we've gone
Yeah.
through periods of homeschooling where it's like, okay, we do need a little bit more of a schedule, you know, just to help all
Right.
of us. And then
Mhm.
other periods where we don't, but it's hard to unlearn the things of like what you have learned about what school should look like.
Mhm.
And because I wasn't homeschooled either, I mean, I all I knew was like this traditional system
Mhm.
of how, you know, our classroom should look. And I think it was the idea of like trying to bring the look of the classroom into the home, which I think for the majority of people is really unsuccessful and
Yeah.
frustrating because
Yeah.
it's it's not the same.
Because you have to change diapers in the middle of
Exactly.
the reading
Yeah.
lesson, and you're like, "What? Do you have to go to the bathroom now?" And I have to change your diaper. Like how? And then it's gone, and then the lesson's never, you know. And
Of
so I
course.
think adjusting to that, I'm still doing it because I
Mhm.
am. I think you learn as a teacher in the, you know, in the school system, which I think it's sustainable within the school system, right? And you need to do like you were saying, but like you're very like product driven, and you want to
Mhm.
see the results right there, and you're like looking for something very specific for the kids to learn
Mhm.
in a certain period of time, and that it's unrealistic for the homeschool experience because it really, you know, it doesn't work that systematically. You have packages dropping up and a barking dog coming through, and
Mhm.
you know, someone needs a snack and is thirsty, and so all these needs that are beautiful and are very you know, and I think it's important in the school system to keep them, because like you said, you have 30 children, and if they all want to go to the bathroom at the same time, it's impossible. But rewiring my brain, like you, it's still happening, and I catch myself doing things that I'm like, I'm just putting him through the same thing that he would have been through in school, but it's even worse because here it makes zero sense to do it that way, right?
Mhm.
What about you, Joanna? Do you feel like what were you doing before, and how was that? How do you play into bringing that into your homeschool experience?
So for me, actually, I didn't ever start trying to make it look like school at home. Our homeschool always has been very homeschooly.
Mm,
But if that's because I already had like I was reading some blogs and
mhm,
then like lots of podcasts when that became popular. But first it was blogs,
mhm,
homeschool moms, just having the natural learning of home. And then the curriculum that I was actually using, I don't know if you guys used a curriculum for kindergarten, but I
mhm,
did. We used Oak Meadow for kindergarten, and it
mm.
has in there like time for exploration, time for play, those kinds of things. And it never really looked like school at home.
Was that a
I knew
Montessori curriculum?
no, it was a Waldorf
Oh, well, oh, sorry, Waldorf. Yeah.
curriculum. Yeah. So, did you, Johannes, use a curriculum?
Yes, with Mateo, we did for kindergarten, we did The Good and the Beautiful. And we did
Oh.
that throughout his kindergarten. And then Learning Without Tears for like writing and like forming letters. They have that like
Mhm.
math man that, so yeah, we did that. Um, but it has changed a lot for my now 4 year old going to kindergarten. I'm thinking about like what I don't want to do and what I want to do, because it's just, I mean, I used to nap in kindergarten. When I was in
Mhm.
kindergarten, that's all we did. We played and we napped. nothing else. And so it has changed so much now. The expectations of a kindergartner are like,
Mhm.
wow, you need to do like almost fractions. Like, okay.
The list
So
keeps on growing,
it
right?
does.
Yes.
It really, really does. I think we kind of move through like unschooling, free schooling, and study, and I really want to be a curriculum person, but I cannot commit. I really
That's
can't.
funny. I would love to be a unit study person, but
Uh,
I don't know. By the end of the thing, I'm like, what have we done? Like I lose all the papers and I'm like, I don't know what we did this year.
yes, yeah. No, and that's part of the reason where we are. I I call myself eclectic because I really
Mhm.
sometimes we do units like now in the summer. We're gonna do a lot of studies, right, to keep us going. Um, but I'm trying to find curriculums that are sustainable and that bring fun, but also, and we love Charlotte Mason. That's kind of like books. And we used to do a lot of Montessori in the preschool years. For Mateo, it was like all Montessori until he was like 5. It was all we did. Um, and I loved it. But I think when he hit 5, I found that Montessori. I'm like, maybe we need something more. And that's when we did The Good and the Beautiful. Yeah, I love the fact that we all have such unique experiences. Not only how we came into homeschooling, but how we do it, which is you know, incredible. Because if you don't know, we've known each other. When I've known Elizabeth for, well, you probably don't know because you don't know us, but if you do, maybe you do. But I've known Elizabeth for what, 11, 12 years, maybe.
Mhm.
And Joanna, what, like maybe like 8? Yeah, because Mateo's going to be 8, which is
Mhm.
incredible. So we're friends, but we all have such a unique way of doing homeschooling because I think everything plays into it, right? Like our cultural background, our
Mhm.
personalities, because our personalities are like, if you cannot tell by now, they are different. And so I think that's part of the like our heart behind this podcast is to show you that you can do homeschooling bringing who you are into
Mhm.
it. You don't have to become anyone else. You don't have to, if you don't want to, because maybe you want to replicate in Pinterest on your home. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can do it. Joanna, would you be comfortable sharing the picture you sent us yesterday? Not sharing the
Oh,
picture, but sharing the story you shared with us of how you were doing read aloud. I found it so
oh,
awesome.
yeah. So, I- also, I did send a message, but I don't know if it actually got through. But I was talking
I
about
got it.
Yeah,
how,
it did.
okay, it did. I was talking about how our homeschool used to look a lot more beautiful and aesthetic, the way that you see on Instagram, right? And I used to share those things. I've shared less and less of what our homeschool looks like now because of what Instagram tells me homeschool looks for other people. It's beautiful chalk drawings. And although I will say I do have a chalkboard and we do draw on it, it's less me though now, and it's more them, and they're chaotic. Okay. So yeah, our read alouds, we still have a circle time, and read aloud is during circle time. But of course, you have to keep the hands busy, right? So in the picture, I think I had one playing with Legos. My son was sewing a little bean bag. Um, yeah, it was a bean bag. And then off to the side, I don't know what my oldest was doing. She might have been doing some embroidery, although that's not a normal thing, really. She doesn't often do that. She usually draws, or they usually play with clay.
Hmm.
Um, and there's laundry in the background, ready to be put away, because that's my least favorite part.
Same
And we're just
sister.
sitting there in our pajamas, messy hair, yogurt left over on the face. And I'm like, that's not, I still snapped the picture, right? Because it was beautiful to me. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what school is right now. It
Mhm.
wasn't like shareable quality, but I
Hmm.
shared it with you guys. Yes.
Yes. Yes. And yeah.
I feel like that's what more people need to see, is just, I mean, not that you need to post it on Instagram, but
Post it.
like the reality that yes, most of the days aren't these beautifully curated, scenes of children loving their mothers and a soft book being read in the background. You know what I mean? But like that's kind of like what is portrayed as homeschooling. And so I think that's a lot of times what becomes a barrier to a lot of people is like, I, number one, have no patience for any of that. Or number two, my kid wouldn't be just like sitting nicely at like a candlelit dining room table, and so it just feels out of reach and out of touch. But I think that's why that photo is so important, whether to talk about that or, share the image or whatever. But that what is beautiful to each of us, to like look, like you said, looking at your kids and thinking like, oh, this is special. This is like what
Mhm.
our life, this is what our homeschool is right now.
Yeah.
Is so good for people to hear, and imagine, because I think, I think that's the joy of all of us sharing like our different cultural backgrounds and what that, I mean, all of that affects the way, our homeschooling looks like, the way we share stories, the things that we emphasize, differently from each other,
Yeah.
because we think it's important, or it's a value, in our culture or in our family. So
For
I
sure.
encourage you
No.
whether to share or like share it in words. Like, I mean, obviously you're
Yeah.
doing it right now, but yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
I also
Yeah.
think
Because
that
no,
each
go
of
ahead.
our
No, go.
interests will like affect how and what those kids are doing, like during a real
Mm-hmm.
out, let's say, like
Mm-hmm.
art and stuff like that is important to me. But
Mm-hmm.
what if somebody was into gardening, let's say? Like there's things that I do, but things I don't do as well. So like you could be doing a real ad when you're digging in the dirt or driving in the car, like it,
Mm.
so every homeschool is going to look different. And
Yeah.
that's really cool part of homeschooling. Like the family culture will
Mm-hmm.
really affect how what is being taught
Yeah.
and which modalities and all that.
Yeah. I'm jumping in because I realize all of you shared your cultural background, and I'm like, wait, I need to share mine too.
Share it.
It's important to me as we're
Yeah.
talking about how that affects our homeschool. Um, you can, yeah, you guys already shared yours, and so I will quickly share mine. So I'm, my background is I'm Tongan. My mother is from the island of Tonga, and my dad is German and English from New York. And that both of them actually play a huge role into our homeschooling. And um, it for both of them, my choice, and my sister's choice at the time to homeschool was an unusual one for sure. It's like,
Mm.
this
Mm-hmm.
is odd, people don't do this. My
Right.
grandmother on my dad's side was a New York public school teacher, and so there was just lots of history of teaching in a traditional environment.
Mm.
And my mom's upbringing, at the time, I don't know if I knew anyone who was homeschooling on my Tongan side. Personally, I'm sure there were people, but um, all of her stories growing up in the islands were like beautiful, funny, awesome stories of being in school. So I
Mm.
think there was the thought of like, they're going to miss out, on like all of
Yeah.
these great things that they got to experience in school. Um, but it has been, yeah, it that side of, I think the cultural side has played a huge part into like what we learn and how we learn. And yeah, so.
Mm.
One thing that I was reminded of when you said that is something that had took pressure off me and still does is the fact that yes, I am the primary educator, but one single conversation with any adult about something that adult is passionate about
Mhm.
with a child, the child will be learning way more in that
Mhm.
conversation, a 30-minute conversation, 10-minute conversation, than they would trying to like read it in a
Mhm.
like some kind of curriculum or something like that. Just
Sure.
so I did come into it thinking that all the adults in my child's life is their teacher. They're going to learn
Hmm.
so much from everyone.
That's a great perspective. It makes me think. I was sharing, I think, with you guys that over the weekend we had gone to a lavender farm, and the person who was it was his farm was talking about like the extraction process of lavender, using like a steam extraction to get essential oils out of the plant. And I was like completely blown away because he was so passionate. I mean, he does it every day. There was 30 different types of lavender. And so the kids were just standing there listening to him probably for like a good 20 minutes talk about how the entire process, start to finish. And I mean, number one, I didn't know the process. I mean, I was like, oh, this is so interesting. And number two, I mean, like you said, it was his genuine passion for the subject that stuck with them.
Mhm.
And I think those are the things that, as I've gone over the years, that I've hoped for my kids with homeschooling, is that that I would be able to help expose them, obviously to the family members and the people in our life who can share anything that they're passionate about, but also like strategically go places and find things that people can impart like their
Yeah.
expertise and their passion into them in a different way than I could.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good to remember, because I think one of the biggest fears is that, at least for me, I don't have all the knowledge in all the world to impart to these children. And so how will that happen? Well, it happens in community, right? It happens with others. It happens partnering. And I think that's why it's so important that we don't look at, like, give the bad eye to school, because school is part of our community, and they create all these amazing programs for kids to be a part of, and our kids get to be a part of that too. And so I think that it's encouraging me, to not have the pressure, like, I need to know it all, or because I'm not good at math. I mean, at least I've told myself that my whole life. And so now, seeing that I have to teach him, like, there's so many people around me and other families, and like you were saying, other adults that can teach him in a way that uh, it's unique and it's going to impact him, and I think when you see it that way, when you see that you're not the only responsible adult in charge of your children education, because we don't expect school, we shouldn't, right? We shouldn't expect school to teach everything to our kids. And so, but I think sometimes some schoolers, we think that the expectation is that they need to know. And I think that's what you were saying, Elizabeth, of like putting the seven, subjects there, is because, like, I need to make sure he knows about everything and every single little detail of the whole world ever in one day and in these years that they're going to be here. And I think what I'm getting from this conversation now, and I hope our listeners are too, is that you can take the pressure off, right? Like, there's people around you that want to be part of your journey as a homeschooler, and that's part of the reason why we created this, so you know that there are many ways of doing this, and that you're not alone in doing
Mhm.
this, and that you can do it. Sometimes I'm not a super very organized person. I want to be. I really want to be, and I'm not. And I find that sometimes, when the laundry is literally, like, I'm sitting here and I was telling them, like, I can see three piles of clean clothes right now, just screaming at me. When are you gonna pair these socks? I'm like, I'm done with socks. I'm gonna throw them all away, and I'm gonna buy black and white socks. That's what I'm gonna do. So then I don't have to pair any of the socks. But when I think about that, I'm like, how in the world am I going to organize our lives in a sustainable way? But then I think about the people that can come along with me and help me do this, right? Like my mother-in-law that's here, homeschool activities that the kids can go to. And then the other thing is that this is real. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.
See you later.
Life, people. We don't have to have it all together, and I'm sure that most of the snapshots we see on Instagram are of that little corner of your house that was picked up today. And it's clean and it looks really pretty, and then the rest, and then I think when we look at that, I don't know, all that shame comes into. And I think that's why, Joanna, the story of the yogurt on the face and sitting on the bed and just is powerful. It's so, so powerful to share, because it really serves as a reminder that life is messy. Therefore, homeschool is going to be messy too, right? Like it's not going to be perfect every single day.
Well, thank you so much for kind of encapsulating our thoughts and feelings, Johannes. We are so thankful for your time, your support, and listening to our podcast. I hope you guys come back soon because we have lots of topics to talk about. Homeschooling is one thing that we can all talk about for hours and hours.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, we would love for you guys to follow us on Instagram. You can find us at the Homeschool Experience. Well, thank you so much for kind of encapsulating our thoughts and feelings, Johannes. We are so thankful for your time, your support, and listening to our podcast. I hope you guys come back soon because we have lots of topics to talk about. Homeschooling is one thing that we can all talk about for hours and hours.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, we would love for you guys to follow us on Instagram. You can find us at the Homeschool Experience.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.
See you later.
Bye.